Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. It was 3:17 p.m. when the fire alarm blared through the building. I know the exact time because I was sitting in my car across the street, waiting to pick up Camille. I always picked her up on Wednesdays. Her car was in the shop for months, and she said Uber was too expensive. So I waited like I always did. Same curb, same time, same playlist humming quietly through my busted speakers. Then came the alarm. A bunch of employees started pouring out of the front lobby in clusters, some laughing, some annoyed, most scrolling on their phones. But not Camille. I didn't see her anywhere, which was strange because she hated loud noises. She was always one of the first out during drills. I thought maybe she slipped out the side, so I looped around back. That's when I saw them. Two silhouettes behind the foggy glass of the emergency stairwell door. One was definitely Camille. I recognized that hideous forest green cardigan she wore every Wednesday. The other figure was taller, leaner, a man. They were close, too close. And then, the door opened just enough for me to catch it. A kiss, quick one, but familiar. Not a nervous peck, not a one-time mistake. It was the kind of kiss that had a routine behind it. I didn't slam the horn. I didn't storm out. I just stared, mouth dry, heartbeat sounding like it was punching through my ribs. He walked away first. She stood there for a moment, ran her hand through her hair like nothing happened, then casually walked around the building and got into my car. She was holding her phone. Oh, they said it was just a sensor malfunction. You don't have to wait so long next time, babe. She smiled. I nodded. Drove us home in silence. She turned up the volume like usual. Started talking about her coworker, Devin, and how he always messes up the printer. Poor guy's hopeless, she said. I wanted to ask her if she wiped his mouth after he kissed her. I wanted to ask if the alarm was really a coincidence or just convenient cover. But I didn't, because I'm not the guy who speaks up. I'm the guy who notices things quietly, who thinks maybe he did something wrong, that maybe my marriage is slipping not because of infidelity but because I forgot to refill the soap in the bathroom one too many times. But that kiss? That was real. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I used the security badge she left in my glove box to get into her office that Friday. After hours, she said she was working late. She was, but not alone, and not on spreadsheets. Friday night felt like stepping into a different world. Camille had left her security badge in the glove box again. She always forgot it and I always reminded her. Except this time I didn't. I waited until she left for work, supposedly staying late for quarterly reporting, then drove to her office building like it was any other errand. I didn't have a plan, just a gut full of static and a brain that wouldn't stop replaying that stairwell kiss like a movie on loop. The badge clicked me through the back entrance with a green light. Everything was dark and silent, except for the hum of the vending machine and the motion sensor lights flickering on overhead. I walked slowly, unsure what I was even looking for. Her office was on the second floor. I knew the layout from the time I helped Carrie in a broken monitor. Back then, she introduced me as my husband, Daryl. He's shy but sweet. Everyone had smiled like I was a puppy. At the top of the stairs, I heard voices. Quiet, close, a man's low laugh. Camille's voice, softer than I'd ever heard it. I moved down the hall toward the marketing conference room. The door was slightly ajar. I didn't need to see much. She was sitting on the edge of the table, legs crossed, shoes off, sipping from a wine glass. Devin, the same guy from the video call, stood across from her, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, fingers tracing lazy circles on the table's surface while he spoke. They weren't touching, not yet, but the way they looked at each other. Like they were alone in their own world, a world I clearly didn't belong to. Camille laughed, that breathy, almost embarrassed laugh she used to save for our kitchen jokes. The ones we told while eating cereal at midnight. I backed away before they saw me. Couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the badge near the elevator. I didn't even notice until I was already outside, leaning against the cold brick wall, trying not to throw up. I didn't confront her. Again, I told myself maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe they were just celebrating a deal. Maybe wine and dim lighting are common for quarterly reports. Maybe I'm the problem. That night, she came home smelling like citrus and copier toner. She kissed my forehead and said, "Let's do pancakes tomorrow." I said okay. Then I cried in the shower. Quietly, like always, but something shifted in me that night. I knew she was cheating. Maybe not physically yet, maybe yes. But emotionally, she had already left me. The only thing still standing between us was paperwork and routine. So I stopped trying to fix things. Instead, I started documenting them. Quietly, carefully. Because if she was going to rewrite our story without me, I wanted a copy of the first draft before she deleted me completely. The next morning, Camille made pancakes like she promised, humming an old pop song while flipping them like nothing was wrong. She even kissed my cheek and asked if I wanted blueberries or chocolate chips. I picked blueberries, though I didn't care. I couldn't taste anything. My mind was still in that dim office hallway, seeing her swirl wine in a glass while Devin looked at her like she was his secret. She sat across from me at the table, scrolling through her phone, laughing at some meme and showing it to me like we were still us. But I was barely listening. I was watching. Every gesture, every pause, every time her eyes shifted a little too fast. There was a new distance behind her smile now, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. After breakfast, I pretended to run errands. In truth, I went to a cheap electronics store and bought a pocket voice recorder. The kind you clip inside your jacket. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. Not because I wanted revenge or drama, but because I was tired of being the fool in my own marriage. I needed proof. Not for court. For me. So I could finally stop gaslighting myself. That Monday, I dropped her off early and circled back after an hour. Her office floor was quiet. I waited in the hallway outside the kitchen area, hoping they'd talk during their morning coffee like she once mentioned. And they did. I pressed record. First, it was small talk. Jokes about traffic. Devin complaining about his tie. Then Camille's voice dropped, the tone that always meant she was being honest. Too honest. "Last Friday was dangerous," she said. Devin laughed. "You didn't seem too worried." She giggled softer now. It felt nice, like something I forgot I could feel. I froze. Those weren't words you said about someone you barely knew. Those were words that rewrote everything. They didn't say my name. Didn't say the word husband. But they didn't have to. I felt it deep in my gut. She was talking about us. About what she wasn't feeling with me anymore. And what she was starting to feel with him. I listened to the full 8 minutes back in my car, hands trembling the whole time. Then I replayed it. Twice. Not because I needed to, but because part of me still hoped I'd misunderstood. That maybe dangerous was a joke. That maybe nice was just a compliment for good coffee. But it wasn't. That night she came home tired. Said Devin had a meltdown over a sales report. Called him a mess. Said she was glad she worked with normal people like Marcy and Tara. She lied to my face without even blinking. I should have said something. I should have held up the recorder and asked her who she thought she was fooling. But instead, I smiled like an idiot and offered to warm up leftovers. She kissed my shoulder and thanked me for being patient. I wasn't patient. I was breaking. But if she could pretend, so could I. Because now I wasn't just listening. I was planning. By the end of that week, something in Camille had changed completely. Or maybe it had been changing for months and I'd only just started paying attention. She had this new bounce in her step when she came home. Her eyes sparkled when she talked about work, except she never mentioned Devin anymore. It was like she was trying to erase him on the surface while letting him live comfortably in the shadows. I knew better. And yet, every time I caught her glancing at her phone with that half-smile, I felt like a ghost living in my own home. The recorder became a daily routine. It wasn't something I was proud of, but it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. Every whispered conversation they had, every accidental brush of hands, every joke with a little too much heat, I caught it all. They weren't hiding well. Maybe they thought no one was watching. Maybe Camille thought I was too soft, too timid to ever notice. And maybe she was right. The recordings painted a clear picture. This wasn't a one-time kiss. It wasn't an emotional slip or some awkward office flirtation. This was two people slowly giving themselves permission to cross a line that should have never even been drawn. One day, I heard her say, "It's like Daryl's too good, like painfully good. He doesn't even argue. He just exists." I played that line back 10 times. She made it sound like being kind was some tragic flaw. Like showing up, loving her quietly, and not making waves had somehow become the reason she no longer felt anything. That broke me in a place I didn't know existed. And yet, I still couldn't bring myself to explode. I was stuck between heartbreak and paralysis, and every day that I smiled through it, I lost a little more of myself. The worst moment came the following Thursday. Camille asked if I could drop off her forgotten lunch at the office. I hesitated. My stomach twisted. But I said yes, because of course I did. I drove over, walked up the stairs with her sandwich in a paper bag, and froze in the hallway outside her floor. Devin was there, talking to another employee. I recognized his voice immediately. It was the same low tone from all those recordings. But now, seeing him in person, it was worse. He looked polished, confident, charismatic. Like the kind of guy who made everyone else in the room feel like background noise. And then he saw me. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Not guilt, not fear, just amusement. Like I was the butt of a joke he'd been enjoying for weeks. He nodded at me and said, "You must be Camille's husband. Heard a lot about you." The way he said it made it sound like a punchline. I just nodded. My mouth was dry. I handed the lunch bag to the receptionist, turned, and walked out without saying another word. That night, Camille didn't ask about the drop-off. She didn't say a thing about Devin seeing me. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe he didn't tell her. Or maybe, and this thought dug into my spine, they had talked about it, just not with me. I realized I wasn't part of her world anymore. I was a prop. Something she referenced, not someone she loved. And yet, I still tucked her in that night. I still locked the front door, turned off the lights, and laid beside her, pretending we were still a team. But I was done pretending. From that point on, I wasn't just watching. I was collecting, preparing. I didn't know for what yet, but I knew the moment was coming. The moment where silence would no longer protect me, or her. It was a Friday evening when I noticed it. Her ring finger was bare. At first, I thought maybe she'd taken it off to wash dishes, or maybe it had slipped off while gardening like it had once before. But when she came into the living room wearing a clean sweater, no soap on her hands, no dirt under her nails, and still no ring, I knew. She sat on the couch beside me, scrolling through her phone like always, laughing at some video and holding the screen out toward me. I nodded. I didn't even look. Couldn't. My eyes were fixed on that pale strip of skin on her finger, the quiet little absence where my marriage used to live. I didn't say anything. I just counted the seconds of silence while the laugh track on her video ran its course. Later that night, when she went to shower, I checked the ring dish on the sink. Empty. I checked the drawer where she used to keep jewelry when she was mad at me. Empty. Checked her nightstand. Nothing. No ring. No excuse. I sat at the edge of the bed for a long time. Long enough for the steam to disappear from the bathroom door. Long enough for her to walk out in that old robe she stopped wearing months ago and look at me with a strange softness in her eyes. Not guilt. Pity. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded too fast. Said something like, "Just tired." She kissed my temple and crawled into bed. No follow-up. No curiosity. Just a kiss like a period at the end of a sentence she didn't intend to revisit. That night I didn't sleep. I listened. To the ceiling fan. To the sound of her breath. To the aching quiet between us. I realized that marriage isn't always a dramatic explosion. Sometimes, it's just a slow disintegration you only notice after the dust settles. And in our case, the dust was everywhere. The next morning, she was up early, already dressed, hair done, lips touched with color. I blinked against the light as she leaned down and said, "I'm meeting Marcy and a few of the girls for brunch. You'll be okay?" I nodded again, because that's what I did. I nodded while she slipped away, but something was off. Camille hated early mornings. She hated brunch food. And she definitely didn't dress like that for scrambled eggs and gossip. Still, I let her go. Not because I believed her, but because I finally believed myself. I waited 15 minutes after she left. Then I opened the drawer under my side of the bed where I'd hidden the old phone. A burner, cheap, but reliable. I had installed a tracking app on it, synced to hers 2 weeks earlier. It wasn't ethical. It wasn't noble. But at this point, neither was she. The red dot didn't move toward any cafe. It headed west, past the old bookstore, past the grocery store, into a neighborhood filled with glass condos and weekend affairs. I sat there watching the dot stop outside an apartment complex I didn't recognize. And I just stared. Not angry, not sad, just numb. That kind of numb that creeps in once hope dies quietly in the corner and no one notices. I stayed seated for almost an hour before finally standing up. That was the moment everything shifted. Not when she took off her ring. Not when she lied again. But when I realized I no longer wanted answers, I wanted closure. And I wasn't going to wait around for her to hand it to me. It was nearly noon by the time I finally left the house. I didn't storm out. I didn't throw things. I just brushed my teeth, packed an old hoodie, and slid into the car like I was running errands. My heart was pounding, but my face didn't show it. That's the thing about being the quiet one. People forget you're still watching everything. The GPS showed her still at that same address. The building was newer than anything we could afford, with big glass windows and brushed concrete balconies. It had the look of something made for people starting exciting lives, not for someone who was quietly destroying one. I parked a block away, heart racing, hands sweating through the sleeves of my hoodie. I didn't go in. I sat there watching. 30 minutes passed. Then 45. And then she came out. She wasn't alone. Devin walked beside her, laughing, casual, with that practiced ease of someone who thinks he's untouchable. Camille had her hair down, oversized sunglasses covering half her face, and she was wearing the necklace I gave her on our 3rd anniversary. The one she said she lost last winter. Now it sparkled under the sun like a knife in my ribs. They didn't kiss. They didn't hold hands. But the way they walked, bodies leaning slightly toward each other, speaking with no rush, no shame. It was intimate in a way no camera could fully capture. I started to take a picture. I had the phone in my hand, thumb hovering, but I couldn't do it. I wasn't there to collect more pain. I already had enough. Instead, I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel tighter than I should have. When I pulled into our driveway, the weight of it all hit me differently. This wasn't a story anymore. It was real. It was my life. And I was trapped in the ugliest chapter of it with no idea how to end it without losing everything. She walked in a few hours later carrying takeout. Marcy had to leave early, so I just grabbed us some Thai. She said like it was any other Saturday. I looked at the bag in her hand. Pad Thai. Extra peanuts. My favorite. She remembered that. Somehow, remembering made it worse. "You okay?" she asked when she noticed I hadn't moved. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." She smiled, placed the food on the counter, and started humming to herself while setting the table. That's when it hit me. She wasn't planning to leave. She had the affair, the apartment, the fake brunches. But she wasn't leaving me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I was her stability, her safe space, her plan B, or maybe just the guy who did the dishes and let her sleep in on Sundays. She didn't see me as a man. She saw me as a utility. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened my laptop, and I started writing. Not to her, not to Devin, to myself. I documented everything, the recordings, the photos, the timestamps, the inconsistencies. Not to use as ammunition, but to reclaim my own version of events before her lies drowned it out completely. Because if I couldn't fight her betrayal, I could at least keep my truth alive. Even if no one ever read it. I spent the next week living like a ghost in my own home. Camille floated around with her usual morning smiles and after-work stories. Only now they were filtered, polished, edited for my benefit. Like I was the audience of a show she no longer respected but still had to keep entertained. I laughed in the right places, nodded when she needed acknowledgement, and kept cooking dinner like nothing was crumbling beneath the surface. But every night after she fell asleep, I kept writing. My digital journal was now over 60 pages long. I wasn't sure if it was evidence or therapy. Maybe both. The truth was, I had no intention of confronting her. Not yet. I wasn't ready for the look in her eyes when she realized I knew. I was terrified it wouldn't be regret I saw, but relief. Then Thursday happened. We were supposed to meet her parents for dinner. Some casual Italian place they liked near the marina. I got ready early, even ironed my shirt, hoping maybe this would be the night she'd slip, that I'd catch her in a lie big enough to finally shatter my silence. But 20 minutes before we were supposed to leave, she came out of the bedroom in leggings and a hoodie. They canceled. Mom said she's got a migraine. Let's just do something simple here, she said, already tying her hair into a bun. I nodded, but something didn't sit right. I excused myself to grab something from the pharmacy, and instead parked across from that same glass apartment complex. The red tracking dot had already arrived. She hadn't even waited 15 minutes after feeding me that lie. I didn't follow her in. Couldn't. What would I do? Burst in and shout, "Gotcha!" I wasn't that man. I was the guy who sat in his car until his knuckles turned white against the steering wheel. The guy who listened to his wife fake a yawn over speakerphone and say, "I think I'm just gonna stay in tonight, babe." Later that night, after she got home, she curled up beside me on the couch and rested her head on my chest like she used to when we first got married. For a moment, I felt her warmth and almost believed it. Then she whispered, "I don't know what I'd do without you. You're my constant." I froze. Constant. The word stabbed deeper than anything else, because suddenly I understood. I was her background noise, her safety net, her placeholder for when the thrill wore off and the consequences began. She thought she was complimenting me. She thought she was reassuring me. But all I heard was, "You're the one I'll always come back to, after I'm done being someone else." That night, I didn't write in the journal. I wrote an email to myself, with attachments, all the audio clips, screenshots, notes, locations, photos, subject line. In case I forget who I am. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed it somewhere that couldn't be deleted in a rage, lost in a power outage, or silenced by doubt. Somewhere permanent, somewhere untouched by her lies. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "You always look so peaceful when you sleep." I just smiled, because she had no idea. I hadn't slept at all. The moment I knew it was over wasn't when I caught them kissing. Not when she took off her ring. Not even when I saw her walk out of that apartment building with Devin like she hadn't just gutted our marriage. No, it happened a few days later, quietly in our kitchen, while I was boiling water for pasta. Camille was scrolling through her phone again, smiling at something, half laughing to herself. She didn't look up when she said it. "You've really been solid lately. I think we're in a good place, don't you?" I stirred the pot. My hands were calm. My voice was steady. "I think we're finally being honest with each other." She looked up at that, surprised, confused. But before she could speak, I walked to the drawer, pulled out the envelope I had sealed the night before, and placed it gently on the table between us. Her name written in block letters. Inside, a printed copy of everything. Photos, audio transcripts, the email, all of it. Her lips parted. No words came out. "I'm not here to scream or beg," I said. "I just wanted you to know I saw everything. I heard everything. And I stayed because I hoped you'd stop. But I know now you stopped loving me long before any of this started. You just never said it out loud." She tried to say something. I didn't let her. "This isn't revenge, Camille. It's relief." I left that night with a small suitcase, my journal, and an old keychain she gave me on our first road trip. Not because I was sentimental, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I could take a memory without it breaking me. It's been 3 months since that night. I live in a small apartment now, nothing fancy, but peaceful. I started reading again. I joined a group of guys who meet on Thursdays to talk about marriage, betrayal, and moving on. I told them my story. They listened. And for once, I didn't feel pathetic. I felt free. Camille sent a few texts after I left. Some angry, some sad, some nostalgic. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't need closure from the person who caused the damage, because I had already found it in myself. And you know the wildest part? I don't hate her. I just don't miss who she became. And I finally understand that letting go of someone who doesn't value you isn't weakness. It's power. End of the story. If you've ever stayed silent too long, or walked away when it hurt most, what was your turning point? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. You're on Reddit Confessions, where every story is a mirror, and every ending can still be a new beginning.